Okay. Woo. So so I tried to film one of these Thursday, I want to say. And I wanted to right now the reason I'm doing this is because my computer messed up while I was trying to do write a paper. So I figure I'll just do this for a second and hopefully I can figure out what's going on with it. Um in a second here. Ooh, my bangs are almost not bangs anymore except for this little piece. Um but here's what I was trying to talk about. So, I've been really interested in the Columbine shootings for a while, because it is sort of it's not at all a mystery, but there's like some speculation about why these kids did this and whether or not it was because they were being bullied or because they were just psychopaths. Um, Now, my personal opinion on that is that I don't believe that they were psychopaths. And I don't necessarily believe that it was strictly them being bullied either. I have some theories, of course, because, we all, sorry, my hair's not usually done when I do videos, so I'm like, and it's doing some crazy stuff today because I had to blow dry it yesterday, which I don't ever do. And it, like, made it straight, but, like, unevenly straight, and I'm not going to straighten it because I don't typically use heat on my hair. I have my blow dryer on a lower setting when I use it, but I had stuff to do in the morning and I had to take a shower and my hair drying naturally without me brushing it because I absolutely don't brush my hair while it's wet. Sorry. Sorry guys. I went off onto a whole nother thing there. And that's what I did in a couple of my last videos that kind of made them not made me not want to put them up. Anyway, so a lot of people say that Dylan Klebold was a follower and that he just kind of did whatever Eric Harris wanted him to do. And so people call Eric Harris the psychopath and Dylan Klebold the follower. Now, from what I've heard, because there are some transcripts of the basement tapes, which I don't know if we're coming up on the 20th anniversary here soon. Not this year, but next year would be the 20th anniversary of Columbine. If you don't know what Columbine is, look it up. No, and I'm from Colorado, and I currently live here. So like it's even more interesting to me that would happen like here, but going to some of the schools out here, and I live in Colorado Springs, not Denver, so it's possibly a little bit different, but the schools out here are pretty bad with the bullying as well. Um, when I was in school, I got I got a lot of it, and especially because of like I did dress very very similarly to the way that those kids did, and like um, you know because a lot of people put it off as these kids were just crazy and they had all these other influences. And I think they did that because they didn't want to believe that their children could have tormented these kids so much that that they would do something like that. But in these basement tapes, which once again not released, I'm thinking like maybe they'll release them eventually because they still, as far as I'm aware, they still exist. Some people are saying they've been destroyed or whatever, but they're somewhere. They've got to be somewhere. Um, and I would kind of like to view them, but they have transcripts from them. And in these transcripts, you hear Eric Harris talking about how he's been separating himself from his family as to not bond with them or be close with them, um, so that he could do this and not feel as bad about it. Which I don't know. I don't know about you, but that doesn't really sound like a psychopath to me. Um, like he's trying to make sure that he has like the ability to go through with something like this, and a psychopath would just be like, all right, let's do this. And they probably wouldn't have I would say they wouldn't have planned it out as for as long as they did, because they didn't need all of that stuff to accomplish what they were trying to accomplish. You know, if their plan had worked, because as we know, the propane bombs that they put in the cafeteria didn't go off, and I'm still a little confused as to how, you know, these kids go in there with bombs and leave them in the cafeteria, and then they leave, right? So that these bombs will go off. Um, and nobody questions why these kids dropped off. Like, I know nobody was in there when they dropped them off, but nobody is like, oh, I wonder why they're, you know, on each pillar there are duffel bags, or as far as I'm aware, it was like duffel bags that they put them in, just sitting there. Nobody questioned that, and that's got me a little confused. But fortunately, they didn't go off, you know, because there would have been that would have been a lot worse. I'm not saying that it wasn't like, you know, a horrible incident. I'm just saying that like it could have been so much worse with that, and there's some luck there, I guess. But and then also in these basement tapes, Dylan Klebold talks about how he's like when Eric Harris is talking about how his mother is good to him, and how, you know, they tried their best, but the moving around and all of this affected him in whatever ways, and like he's so aware of it, you know. um and I think that was sort of just an excuse because he didn't want to admit that he wanted to be liked at this school. He didn't, you know, he had his whole I hate people like thing going on. So he didn't want to be like, you know, I just want to be accepted, which is really what most kids want, especially, you know, teenagers and, you know, teenage boys. I'm not saying that teenage girls want to be accepted any more or any less or vice versa. It's just, you know, I wasn't that upset when boys didn't like me, but I feel like maybe teenage boys are a little bit more upset when girls don't like them. And you know, we're raised in this society where like it's the girl's fault that they don't like you. You know, I mean, it's their fault if they pick on you because they don't, instead of just being like, look, I don't really like you that way. Um, or you know, I don't know. But Dylan Klebold says that he's glad that his mother and father gave him so much freedom to be able to do this thing that they were planning on doing. He doesn't thank them for all they've done for him. He doesn't, you know, it's not the same as Eric Harris is speaking about his mother and his parents, because, you know, he loves them. And, you know, you can kind of tell that, and you can tell that he has like actual like real emotion in a lot of the other videos. Um and all you ever really see Dylan Klebold do, and it's not even like he doesn't even get angry. He just like he laughs, you know, but that's not a real emotion, you know. So I would venture to say that he would be more of the psychopath than Eric Harris. But then you look at the journals, and I really don't think either of them were psychopaths, because you look at Dylan Klebold's journal, and he talks about, you know, how he just wants to be liked. And Eric Harris says the same thing in his. He says, you know, nobody ever invites me to anything, and, you know, everybody just thinks I'm a weirdo, and then, you know, in order to get through this, they had to create this thing where they weren't weird. They were so much better than everybody else, and that's why nobody wanted to be around them. They had to do this in order to survive, in order to not to not drive themselves crazy, asking themselves, what's wrong with me? Why don't these people like me? Instead, they came up with this reason that made them better than everybody else. So I don't think they were psychopaths. I just don't. But something that I forgot. I had a good point. No, something that that kind of trips me out is, you know, right towards the end there, and I think if somebody had actually like talked to them, they may have been able to stop it, because it was supposed to happen sooner. And then Dylan Klebold went to the prom, and I think that's part of the reason why they held off on it for a second. And then I think other reasons were just because, you know, they were like, I don't know. I don't know if this is what we should do. I don't think they were super sure in that. And I think they had to wait until they went through one of the like waves of, if anybody knows how depression goes, or most mental illnesses, it's like a wave of this feeling. So maybe they planned it, but then they had to wait because they planned it while they were going through this, and then they had to wait for them to go through it again in order to be able to like actually do it. Um, Once again, just a thought. One thing I will say is everybody talks about how many opportunities people had to catch them and stop them from doing this. Um, but I would say the number one way that they could have stopped it, um, personal opinion here, is about a year before, like when they started planning this, Eric Harris was put on Zoloft. Um, and he did speak to the person who put him on Zoloft, and he was like, "I'm having, these feelings, and they're not right, and I think it's the medication. These feelings about suicide and hurting people." And he let them know that he was having these feelings, and their solution was to switch him to a different brand. And so I think that, and that was found in his system, um, when they did his autopsy. So I think that maybe this could have been stopped entirely by not putting him on that medication, by giving him some sort of other help, because it's so easy to just put people on meds instead of actually, trying to figure out how to help them. They're like, "Oh, your brain's broken, here's something to fix it," instead of, it's like putting a piece of duct tape over, a hole in your wall. You know what I mean? I probably could have come up with another like analogy, I guess, but um, so maybe it could have been stopped by that, and everybody's so focused on like it could have been stopped by the parents. And you know what? In that aspect, I suppose it could have been, because his dad could have been like, "I don't want him on Zoloft if it's causing these problems." But usually that's a private conversation that you have with your therapist, and your parents, maybe never know about it. That's the thing is, doctor patient yeah, that, you know what I'm trying to say. I can't spit that word out right now. Um, I don't know. I just, that's one of those ways that I really do feel like that could have been stopped. And, sort of on on Eric Harris's dad, I do wish that he would come out and speak about things. And I think part of the reason that he won't is because everybody is saying, "How did you guys not know what was in his room?" And speaking like personally, my parents were, um, uh, somewhat strict. Um, and I hid plenty of stuff in my room. You know, I had a lot of things in my room, and my dad had been in my room, but he didn't find the things that I hid in there. Sometimes, sometimes he did. I'm just saying it's not that easy, you know. But I think part of the reason he didn't come forward is because he kept that journal on Eric. But he was so supportive, and had he not been, maybe they would have done it sooner. He was like, my kid isn't in the wrong here because people are tormenting him. He's doing these things because, you know, these people are being bad to him. Um, so, I don't know. I think he should come out and be like, "Look, I loved my son, and I wanted to support him because I didn't think he was some sort of psychopath, because he wasn't. I don't think he was either." And, it'd just be nice to see that. And like, I think people don't want things like that because it humanizes these kids that did this horrible thing. And like I said, people don't want to believe that their children had a part to play in making these kids feel like they were so backed up against a wall that they had to do this. And no, of course they didn't have to do it, but they're teenagers, and then they're teenage boys, especially. They have all these hormones and increased testosterone, and they're being messed with, and everything is just, at that point, it was like hell for them. And unfortunately, I'm not saying I would like them to have just killed themselves, because I'm honestly sad for them that they are gone too. You know, if they could have been, I don't know. Eric Harris was a smart kid. They were both really smart kids, and they could have gone places, and they could have contributed to society. Nobody thinks about them in that aspect. Nobody thinks about, they're like, oh, these monsters, and it's not like a serial killer. Maybe you could call them a monster, because they keep doing it and doing it and doing it. At a certain point, these kids snapped, and they were like, I can't take this anymore. And they honestly almost changed their mind a couple times. That's, I don't know. And there's a video of the football team. One of these kids was like, "Oh, I don't, I don't remember ever being, terrible to these kids." And none of those kids will admit that. There were people who messed with me so much when I was in eighth grade. They messed with me so much, and then like I remember once one of the girls who messed with me like that saw me crying in the hallway and was like, "Oh, not apologizing for things that she had done, but calling other people this, that, and the other thing because of it. But she had done it too." And nobody wants to admit that they do that, especially if it caused what it caused. I mean, admittedly, I possibly had some thoughts that people may have concerned people. I didn't do anything horrible, and I wish I could tell those kids that it doesn't last forever. You get out of there and you realize that you're so much better than those people. And sometimes those people end up, talking to you and being like, I'm sorry that I was like that to you. And, I'll accept their apologies, but any further than that. But like, and he did say, this football player did say that, it makes you more aware of how you treat people. But he did say that he didn't believe that they were at all to blame for it. And there are these videos where they're walking through the hallways and these jocks, elbow them, push them. It's just you can't just be like, these kids were monsters and nobody else had a part to play. You can't be like, these kids are monsters and it's their parents' fault. Because if you talk to any kids, especially kids that are odd, they'll tell you that it still happens, and it still happens hard and a lot. Because Columbine happened when I was 6 or 7. I would have been 7, I think. Oh yeah, I would have. It was the day before my 7th birthday. Um, so, um, years following this, like what, 6, 7 years following this, I went to a school where I dealt with similar things, and a kid that I knew, got jumped on his way home on a regular basis, where I almost got jumped multiple times just walking home because people didn't like me, not because I did anything to them, but just because like I was weird. It still happens. And had that happened to me, had it happened to the point where people were actually like harming me, and there were very embarrassing things that happened to me, and they were like not just embarrassing things that, oops, I like tripped or something, like things that people made happen to me. You know what I mean? And it is hard to deal with, and it's especially hard to deal with when you're going through like those changes. And I'm just saying, I don't think they were psychopaths. I do not think that at all. That's that's pretty much it. A whole video about me talking about how I don't think Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold were psychopaths, and how I think that they could have contributed to society in some way. And of course, they didn't pick and choose, and that messes me up. And in I think it was Eric's journal, he said, when talking about their plan, that he had to consider the fact that there were 100 or so people in that school that he didn't want to die. So the fact that he was even thinking about that, what if theoretically Eric Harris, because he was concerned about hurting his friends potentially, went and he messed up the propane bombs on purpose. Because they go back to the cafeteria and like they've been making bombs for a while. So I don't know if they had ever gotten any of their propane bombs to work, honestly. You know, that, I'm gonna keep that to myself. Never mind. But so what if he made it so they wouldn't go off? Because he was concerned that it might hurt people that he cared about. So he messes those up, and then they go back into the cafeteria once it's all cleared out. And then they try and make them blow up. Just a thought. They wait until it's completely empty, and then they go back and try and get them to blow up. I'm pretty sure to get themselves. And now I will say that I don't know if you've ever looked at their suicide picture. It's sad. It is. It's so sad to me. Like, it's sad to see what they did, but it's sad to me that these kids felt that they had to, and I'm probably gonna get a lot of crap for that, but it is. It breaks my heart that happened, and that these kids felt they needed to do that, and they lost their lives as well. But if it makes y'all feel any better, those of you who don't think that it was a tragedy that any of them died, because that's the thing is, of course people are like, oh, well, I'm glad they're dead. Honestly, I would, even if they had done that, I would have liked them to live just so that I could know, like, what was going on. Because they would have talked about it. They were all about the fame, There are some really funny YouTube poop videos of them in their little homemade videos. So, like, if you really don't like them, it's good to get a laugh out of that, especially knowing how much they wanted to, like, be remembered, which we did do that. We did everything they said we were going to do. It was all over the media. There were movies made, not by the directors they wanted, but so anyway, what I was saying is, for those of you who are like, good, I'm glad they're dead, y'all should look at that picture. And, well, I mean, disclaimer, it's a picture of them dead. No blurriness. Like, one of the Eric Harris shot himself in the mouth with a shotgun, so be prepared for that. And Dylan Klebold, he was moved to check for booby traps. So he's not in the same position in those pictures that he would have been when it happened. But his blood and brains are all over Eric Harris's pants, and it's pretty brutal. But if you go and you see that, and maybe that would be healing, I guess, if you still hold some sort of however, Eric Harris, his death was painless. It was over like that. But to comfort you, for all of you people who are like, these were horrible people, I wish they suffered, know that Dylan Klebold did. He did shoot himself through his head, like so. That side, out that side. Actually, left, yeah, it was left, okay. So that happened, but it didn't kill him immediately. He drowned on his own blood. I know, that's horrible, that's horrific, that's terrible, terrible thing to talk about, terrible way to go, but, like, I just thought y'all should know that, because maybe it would bring you some comfort knowing that boy suffered. But it doesn't bring me any comfort, because I know he suffered, but he suffered for long before that. But that's all. This video is way longer than I wanted it to be, but this is something I could honestly talk about all day. The reason I'm talking about it here is because, I'm sure my husband, one, is getting sick of it and probably thinks I'm crazy. So I'll talk about it to you guys instead. Don't usually say this, but, subscribe if you want. I do lots of different things. I don't know if that's a bad thing or a good thing. Like, I have a variety. So if this is the kind of video you like, there will be other ones of this video. If maybe one of my, I did a wish haul, I should do another one of this. I do hooping videos. I talk about, my tattoos. Not like, I mean, not until I get another one. there won't be another video until I get another one. Um, but yeah, do lots of stuff. Subscribe if you want. Tell your friends. I don't like trying to promote myself like that. I just don't. I don't like telling y'all what to do. Do it if you want. See you later.